What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. Today's video, we're going to give you our top 10 trade targets for the NFL trade deadline. All that and much more coming your way right now! Hey Trash Talkers, over 85% of you are still not subscribed to the channel. Please be sure to hit that red subscribe button and turn on notifications, as it will help us create more daily content for you. Thank you and enjoy today's video. All right, Nick, the NFL trade deadline is looming. It will be at 4 p.m. on Tuesday. And we have a lot of big names that have been rumored or at least have asked for trades. Some, talking about not really fitting where they've been the last couple of years. And we have 10 names that we've kind of narrowed it down to. And I want to get your thoughts on some of these players, where they might end up, and kind of where we should go from here. So, like I said, the trade deadline is 4 p.m. on Tuesday. It's going to be one hell of a trade deadline. I think that there's going to be a lot of active teams. And why don't we start off with our first one, Nick? The Las Vegas Raiders, Clelin Ferrell. He's an outside linebacker, edge, for those of you who don't know. What do you think about Clelin Ferrell?
Yeah, I mean, Clelin Ferrell's a guy he's played in 32 games so far in his career and only has 6.5 sacks. He really hasn't shown the production you want at a 4th overall pick. And I think we're finally seeing that Clelin Ferrell is just a bust. I don't know if there really is a true fit out there for him, because I don't know if he can really thrive on another roster. We see the other pass rushers for the Raiders having an outstanding year. Clelin Ferrell's the one guy who's not, and that's just because he lacks the talent. Just because you're picked high in the draft and you have a good college career doesn't mean you're going to work out in the NFL, and we're seeing that with him. You have to really be desperate if you're looking for Clelin Ferrell, and I just can't find a team that would be willing to give up what it would take to get somebody who was drafted only 2 years ago and at the 4th overall pick. So to me, I think that there is no best trade suitor out there for Clelin Ferrell.
I think Clelin Ferrell makes a lot of sense for a lot of teams, but not at the trade deadline. I think when you take a look at what he can do, he's not going to be a guy that is going to set you apart at the top of a division. He's not going to be that difference maker that you're looking for at the trade deadline. I'm looking at the Jets, I'm looking at the Jaguars, I'm looking at the Texans as possible teams that would want this guy, but that's in the offseason when they get to reevaluate kind of where they are. I don't see him moving at the trade deadline. I know there's a lot of buzz about Clelin Ferrell, but I think he stays with the Raiders come Tuesday. All right, next up, we have Philadelphia Eagles offensive tackle Andre Dillard. Andre Dillard is one of those guys that he has not been able to hold his own. In fact, he's been passed over by Jordan Mailata and other players on the team that have transitioned to tackle instead of using Andre Dillard, who they selected in the 1st round just a couple of seasons ago. So, Nick, do you think Andre Dillard deserves another shot somewhere else? Do you think he gets traded?
I don't think he's going to get traded, but I do believe he belongs on another roster. And a team I would look out that could potentially go after him, the Carolina Panthers. They've already said that they're not going to go after Deshaun Watson, which means they're stuck with Sam Darnold for at least the rest of the year. And they invested a lot of draft capital in this guy when they traded for him with the New York Jets. They need to fix this offensive line if Sam Darnold's going to have any shot of being productive in this offense. We saw the offensive line at full strength to start the year, and that's when Sam Darnold was spectacular. Now that the offensive line's getting banged up, they're not as healthy, they're letting things go, and Sam Darnold is on the back end of this, and he's the one that has to deal with all of the repercussions. If you get a guy like Andre Dillard, who was drafted as a highly touted left tackle out of college, who has the size and athleticism to play the position, then Matt Rule and this team really need to go and get him, because he is much better than everything else that the Panthers have going on that offensive line.
I think the Panthers do try to make a trade for him at the deadline. I like the Panthers a lot. I think they make the most sense right now. But if he doesn't get traded, there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of teams trying to go after this guy. I'm looking at the New York Jets as a right tackle. The Panthers will definitely be in the mix. The Seattle Seahawks are going to be in there. The Kansas City Chiefs might view this as a possible opportunity to upgrade their right tackle position. So there's a lot of teams, and I didn't even get to a bunch of others. I think that Andre Dillard has a market out there. It's just, what is Howie Roseman looking for in exchange for Andre Dillard, and is a team willing to pay the price for a former first-round pick? Next up, we have the infamous Deshaun Watson. Nick, you just talked about how the Panthers have pulled out of the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, at least for this week. Maybe that changes toward the deadline. Who knows what kind of games they're playing on their side. But nonetheless, it seems like the Miami Dolphins right now might be the only suitor. Denver has been rumored to be in the mix as well. And Deshaun has said that he would waive his no trade clause for teams that make the most sense for him. So far, he hasn't heard a team recently that he wouldn't waive his no trade clause for. So that makes a lot of sense for Denver and for Miami and possibly even Carolina to make a trade. Nick, do you think Watson gets moved before Tuesday?
I do believe Deshaun Watson gets moved before Tuesday. There's a lot of talk around the NFL that says there's actually a deal in place currently for Deshaun Watson to go to the Miami Dolphins. He has already verbally agreed to waive his no trade clause for the Miami Dolphins. We have not heard that for any other team, and we know that Tua is not the guy for Miami. They have been looking to offload this guy since the beginning of the season. Deshaun Watson is going to be eligible to play if he is traded. The NFL said they're not going to step in until they have all of the details on his case, in which they do not right now. So if the Miami Dolphins are looking to compete, and they definitely are with the other weapons they have around that team, then Deshaun Watson makes a ton of sense. Deshaun Watson can turn this 1-6 team into a playoff contender, and it makes the AFC East one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL. What Deshaun Watson can do for a team like the Miami Dolphins is remarkable. We all know what he did with the Houston Texans was unbelievable, and I can only imagine what he could do with the much better weapons he would have in Miami.
I don't think Deshaun Watson gets moved, and I think it's the largely looming issues that he's dealing with. I think teams are very wary of that. Otherwise, if he didn't have that, he would have been traded by now. That is the one Achilles heel to whatever trade could possibly happen. I do not believe Deshaun Watson gets traded before Tuesday. I think he goes into the offseason with more trade suitors coming along. I think that they're going, I believe that the Houston Texans have not met the package that they're looking for. And come this offseason, you're going to see teams like the Atlanta Falcons, like the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're going to see teams that weren't in the fray earlier come into the mix, and they're going to be able to build up packages that Houston might be able to leverage for better picks, maybe with Miami, maybe with another team. So at the end of the day, I don't think the Houston Texans move on from Deshaun Watson. But we're not done with the Houston Texans just yet. Look for them later in the show. For now, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. All right, let's keep going with these trade targets for this week. And we're talking about Melvin Ingram asking the Pittsburgh Steelers, the team he just signed with this offseason, for a trade. The Pittsburgh Steelers have lacked a pass rush outside of TJ Watt. And it begs the question, not only does Melvin Ingram deserve to be traded, but should a team want him if he has struggled so much in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, Melvin Ingram, he's had success in the past, but that was with the Chargers. Now that he's taken over that Bud Dupree role, he hasn't shown up. And you would think that if you're a linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're going to play extremely well because they know how to make that position work. Well, there is one team out there that is lacking a pass rush right now, and that's, well, his former team, the Los Angeles Chargers. They could definitely use Melvin Ingram back in that defense, in that front seven. What he was able to do opposite Joey Bosa was incredible. So I think rekindling that relationship, rebuilding this front seven, the defense looks great under Brandon Staley. I think it could get even better if they were to add Melvin Ingram.
I like Melvin Ingram. I think he will get traded before Tuesday's deadline, but I'm taking the Arizona Cardinals. I believe that the Cardinals make a move with the news that J.J. Watt will be out for the remainder of the 2021 NFL season. With all of the litany of injuries that he suffered in that game, unfortunately, has to miss the rest of the season. You take Melvin Ingram, you put him opposite Chandler Jones, and you are right back in the fold with one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. He's on a 1-year deal. He's not going to take the place of JJ Watt next year, and you give him an opportunity to compete at the same time bolstering your team where there's now a newfound need. I like Melvin Ingram. I like the Cardinals. I think it's a great fit. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts running back Marlon Mack, a guy that has been very underutilized in the system. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor coming to town, it definitely hurt Marlon Mack's stock. Nick, what are your thoughts on Marlon Mack being traded?
Yeah, well, Marlon Mack is still a fantastic running back. Just because he hasn't had the opportunity to prove himself since the injury that he is still the same running back doesn't mean he's not. And I believe he is that running back. Marlon Mack can be the primary back for one of these NFL teams. And one in particular that is on a Super Bowl run, the Buffalo Bills, they need a primary back. I think Marlon Mack would fit well in that system. I think that he'd be perfect alongside Josh Allen. Devin Singletary and Zach Moss have been great for what they are, but they are not elite backs. They're not primary backs. They are offset backs, and you can't have two offset backs to each other. Someone's got to be the alpha, and Marlon Mack can be that.
Yeah, this one was tough because I like Buffalo, but I also like the Baltimore Ravens. And listen, I understand that they own literally every running back that has ever played in the NFL. However, Devonta Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, Lat Murray, none of these guys have pulled away from each other. Latavius Murray is a great goal line back. I will not take that away from him. He is a massive human that can really get through a line, especially when you need a yard or two. Without that, though, they need a bell cow, and that's what J.K. Dobbins was supposed to be. That's what Gus Edwards was supposed to be. Marlon Mack can show what he can do in a run-heavy offense and show that he is able to sustain himself. He's not going to get injured, and he can handle the workload. I think Marlon Mack on Baltimore would definitely help this team a lot, and he would have an ability to showcase what he can do. Obviously, he doesn't have the no-trade clause that Deshaun does, so he doesn't have much say where he goes, but I think that's a great fit, and I believe the Baltimore Ravens should make a trade for him. Next up, we have Chicago Bears wide receiver Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson has severely struggled without Mitchell Trubisky in Chicago. Andy Dalton, Justin Fields, doesn't matter who's under center for the Bears. Allen Robinson is not getting looked at. He has wide receivers 3 and 4 passing him on the depth chart because he's just not getting those looks. And at the end of the day, I think his time has just come in Chicago. Nick, do you think Allen Robinson gets traded by Tuesday's deadline?
Unfortunately, I don't. I don't think Allen Robinson gets traded, even though I would love for him to get moved because I feel bad for this guy who seems to be trapped in Chicago. He wants out. He's wanted out for years, and they keep franchise tagging him. They keep forcing him to stay with this dreaded offense under Matt Nagy. And you know what? You can only feel bad for the guy, but if he were to get moved, I would expect a team like the San Francisco 49ers to make a move for him. The 49ers are not dead in the water. They're not out of the playoff race. They can still make this push, but they need to fix this offense, get some weapons around Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance, doesn't matter who. Deebo Samuel's the only guy there right now. George Brittle is not showing up this year. Brandon Ayuk is not the second-year breakout we thought he would be. Allen Robinson is another Deebo Samuel. He can work in the same routes, do the same thing, even possibly better. But Allen Robinson is not getting the opportunities he needs that he's used to. It's just not a good situation right now for Allen Robinson, and what he's putting out is not what you would get on a different roster. I think if you put Allen Robinson on the San Francisco 49ers, he could definitely help them become a more playoff-bound team.
You talk about a team that's not dead in the water. I'll give you a team that's not dead in the water. The Indianapolis Colts. I believe Allen Robinson could get traded by Tuesday to the Indianapolis Colts, and here's why. T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell were supposed to play really solid roles with this team. They were supposed to be the speedsters that took the top off the defense, really opened up things for Michael Pittman, Mo Alley Cox, and everybody else to work underneath. They didn't get that. Now you have the big-bodied receiver that Carson Wentz likes, sure, but you need somebody who's going to be able to do all the underneath stuff, all the cross-field stuff. That's where Allen Robinson comes in. And with him on a franchise tag, the Indianapolis Colts are not levied to him. They're not tethered to him for any more time than this year. So if he doesn't work out, you just call it a bust and move on. It's not going to take much to get Allen Robinson out of Chicago, as he's on an expiring contract. Maybe the highest they will get is a 3rd-round pick, but outside of that, I doubt they'll get anything more. Right now, Allen Robinson is a flailing trade asset that is just waning day after day, week after week with the Chicago Bears. They have to capitalize on whatever value he has left, and I think the Indianapolis Colts make the most sense right now. Speaking of wide receivers that are flailing and want out of their current position, Michael Thomas is slated to come back to the New Orleans Saints. And now, obviously, Michael Thomas has had his struggles and his fair share of issues with the New Orleans Saints, but he is slated to come off the physically unable to perform list, and he should be back with this Jameis Winston offense, if you will. I don't know what they are right now. Nonetheless, Michael Thomas is coming back, and he doesn't want to be in New Orleans. So, Nick, do you think he gets traded before Tuesday?
No, Michael Thomas definitely not getting traded with that $20 million a year contract. That's going to take a while to work through, and a lot of teams are going to want the Saints to eat a lot of that during the season. So it's going to be hard for them to do that before, without it being the offseason. So I don't expect Michael Thomas to be moved. I think they also want to see what Michael Thomas actually looks like with Jameis Winston under center, because let's be honest, Jameis Winston really hasn't had a fair shot this year. He's been working with a bunch of scrubs and hasn't had a true opportunity to prove himself. So Michael Thomas gives him that opportunity. They just traded for Mark Ingram to bring him back with Alvin Kamara. So you add some depth to the running back position that you desperately need, but now you get to bring back Michael Thomas to this team, who is a true number one and one of the best receivers in the NFL when he's playing. So I think you really need to see what you have in Jameis Winston with a fully healthy Michael Thomas.
No, I agree with you. I think Michael Thomas stays. That contract cannot be moved right now, especially with the league year where it is and the reduced salary cap. There's not many teams that would be able to take on that contract. And when you're looking at what teams could, you're looking at maybe the New York Jets and maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars, not teams that are vying for an aging receiver's contract right now. They're looking to get younger and build up a franchise. So at the end of the day, I just don't think there's a good fit for Michael Thomas. But speaking of receivers, we have our final one on our list, and that would be Brandin Cooks, the former New Orleans Saint. And he has expressed an interest to get the hell out of Dodge, and Houston is not the place for him anymore. With no Deshaun Watson, he has struggled with Davis Mills. It has not been pretty for him this season. With Tyrod Taylor, he seemed pretty decent. But outside of that, Brandin Cooks has not been able to get anything going and has been used more as a decoy than an actual receiver. Nick, do you think Brandin Cooks gets traded before Tuesday's deadline?
Brandin Cooks will absolutely get traded, and it's time for Sean Payton to get the band back together. You brought back Mark Ingram. Time to put Brandin Cooks back with Michael Thomas. We need to see this happen. Jameis Winston is a deep throw quarterback. He loves that deep ball. Brandin Cooks is a deep threat receiver. You need to have him on this team if Jameis Winston is going to succeed. Michael Thomas will help him, but he won't get him all the way. You need to get more depth at the receiver position. Brandin Cooks knows the system, and he will work out extremely well. Brandin Cooks is an incredible talent, absolutely being wasted on the Houston Texans, and I know with Jameis Winston under center that Brandin Cooks is going to be more explosive than we've ever seen him.
I agree. I love the New Orleans Saints as a destination for Brandin Cooks. And it would be kind of funny to get Mark Ingram and Brandin Cooks back with the band. The Houston Texans essentially just handing over former Saints back to their previous franchise. But a team that I don't want to overlook here, and you mentioned them earlier, the San Francisco 49ers. That's what Brandon Ayuk was supposed to do, is everything Brandin Cooks does. And when you give Brandin Cooks the green light to go and offset Deebo Samuel, now you're giving Jimmy Garoppolo a weapon that he not only knows from his time in New England, but also a weapon that he can trust and he knows is going to get open down the field. It is going to open up this offense completely. You're going to see Eli Mitchell even benefit from this. I think the San Francisco 49ers have to look at the possibility of Brandin Cooks joining their franchise. Next up, we have New York Jets safety Marcus Maye. And Marcus Maye has essentially said that he doesn't want to play for the Jets anymore. He's on an expiring contract. They're not going to get much from him, so they might as well deal him before the deadline. Nick, do you think Marcus Maye gets traded? Marcus
Maye is not going to get traded, even though he probably should. He's not going to. With the way that Joe Douglas runs this team as the general manager, he's very unpredictable in the way he does things. He'll give a big contract to a guy who doesn't deserve it, and he refuses to give a contract to players that they desperately need. need. So with Marcus Maye, it's going to be that he should be traded, but he's not going to, because that's what a Joe Douglas move would look like. Marcus Maye is an incredible talent at the safety position. He would be a top 10 safety in the league if he weren't a New York Jet. But I believe that if he were to get traded, I would expect a team like the Kansas City Chiefs to go after him, a team that has a horrible secondary right now, needs some discipline, and Marcus Maye would offer that. Him and Tyrann Mathieu next to each other would be incredible for the secondary. It would definitely help the Kansas City Chiefs get back to their style of football, get them back to their winning ways.
I was going to mention the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that they make a ton of sense for Marcus Maye, but I also want to give you another option, and it's another option that has already dealt for New York Jets safety, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks bringing Marcus Maye and Jamal Adams back together could help this secondary. With as bad of a season as they've been having defensively, it is time to start solidifying the back end. That is where they struggle the most, and Marcus Maye can play that free safety role, can really help out, especially knowing how to play off of Jamal Adams. They can work together with their cues and understanding exactly what each other wants to do week in and week out. I believe that this would be an unbelievable pairing. But if the Seattle Seahawks don't work out, and I doubt this will happen, but I think that the New York Jets need to trade Marcus Maye to the New England Patriots. And I doubt that this will happen because they are interdivisional rivals. But Marcus Maye plays free safety. Devin McCourty, one of the best free safeties in football, just went down with an injury. The Patriots could use Marcus Maye, maybe give the Jets a draft pick and try to get him for the rest of the season. Like I said, I have said it 5 times already. I doubt this happens. But Bill Belichick would not be Bill Belichick if he doesn't at least call and say, I know we just destroyed you by 54 points, but at the end of the day, is Marcus Maye available? I think he has to make the phone call. I think that they just need to. And listen, the worst he can say no, right? So Bill Belichick, go make that call. All right, for our final pick for our trade destinations, we have Denver Broncos cornerback Kyle Fuller, their prized free agent possession that they got this offseason from the Chicago Bears. Kyle Fuller was supposed to be reinvigorated and reignited with the Vic Fangio defense, and all of a sudden, he's the CB4 on the team and has been playing behind a couple of young players, rookies, second-year players, not looking good for the Denver Broncos. So Kyle Fuller has expressed a reason to leave. And Nick, do you think Kyle Fuller gets traded by the Tuesday deadline?
Kyle Fuller is, again, one of those players I will absolutely say, yes, he will be traded. Kyle Fuller has been rumored to go to a couple teams so far, but I think a team that will emerge as a dark horse, the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a team that has been improving their defense so well over the last couple of years, and they need to do it just a little bit more if they're going to continue to be the top team in the AFC. Adding Kyle Fuller to this secondary would be incredible. It would add some incredible depth that would allow them to go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers twice a year and handle those receivers, go up against the Buffalo Bills and their receivers. Even in the other conference, you could face the Arizona Cardinals or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and have pretty much no issues. Kyle Fuller would be an absolutely incredible add for a team like the Cincinnati Bengals.
You talk about the Bengals and how high-powered they are right now, but how about the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I believe that the Buccaneers can make a solid move to go after Kyle Fuller, because you talk about a team that's been decimated in the secondary. Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, these guys have gone down. Antoine Winfield, he's a safety, but still plays nickel corner sometimes. They need a guy who can come in and really help them out. They brought in Richard Sherman, and then he's out for the season. He's just gone like that. Kyle Fuller needs to come in. I believe that they can make a trade and get this guy while he's still a viable option at the cornerback position. I believe that he can still cover #1 wide receivers, at least #2 wide receivers. And you're talking about an offense that's going to be able to score points. He doesn't have to play at an all-pro level. He just needs to come in and be an effective cornerback that can be better than their current corners right now. I like Kyle Fuller to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by the deadline. All right, well, I want to hear from you guys. Let us know in the comments down below what you think about our trade targets, if you see any of these guys moving, and where you believe they should go. All right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.